Welcome to the Hire Truckers Podcast, where we interview experts in driver recruiting. We provide industry insights, marketing trends, and motivation to help you level up your recruiting game. Welcome to the Hire Truckers Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Craddock, and today we have Sarah Kate on with us. Welcome, Sarah Kate.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And so Sarah Kate is currently at DB Schenker as the Director of Recruiting. She's been there about 6 months now. She's been in the industry around 8 years in different recruiting leadership roles. She's been at Knight, Martin, and Ozark prior to DB Schenker. And I'm super excited. We've been trying to coordinate for like a year to have Sarah Kate on. And, you know, this industry can be challenging and we can all get really busy. But I really appreciate her carving out the time today to add value to everyone in the industry. And that's really our goal today as we've thought through and prepared for this is, you know, how can we help directors of recruiting, recruiters, and executives just thrive in this industry and enjoy it as hard as it can be at different times. And so that's what we're here to do today is just chat a little bit about the industry and hear a little bit of Sarah Kate's story and just add as much value to you guys as possible. So first of all, Sarah Kate, how did you get into transportation?
Happenstance. I was trying to get out of the pharmacy field. I was just it was burnout. It was becoming not really corporate because we're corporate here, but just taking the people part out of the medications and things like that. So my sister-in-law at the time said that I would be a great recruiter. And I told her absolutely not. There's no way I could be a salesperson. But then, you know, after interviewing and kind of hearing more about it, it became a lot less salesy to me and a lot more of you're giving people a future and opportunity and seeing what you saw in the carrier that you were with at the time. And if you believed in them, it was much easier to recruit the drivers. So I took a leap of faith, and about 2 weeks in after I trained and onboarded, I absolutely fell in love. And the industry, I felt like gave that same sentiment back. They welcome you in like family. And then I never looked back from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I same way kind of stumbled in the industry. But I don't think 2 weeks in, I was not like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I think 2 weeks in, I was like, what did I get myself into? Like in terms of just, I didn't even understand just all the lingo. And I love the people aspect of it. And for me,
it's the acronyms and then the competitive nature. I only have brothers. So just being competitive was kind of in my upbringing. And then having terminal managers have expectations of you saying like, you have to hit this number, you have to hit this number. So then it was a challenge, and I'm not putting down no for, will you accept this challenge? So, that was part of the driving force too, was seeing the people who were succeeding and mimicking exactly what they were doing and trying to learn more and more and more. So that competitive nature probably was a bit of that 2 week in, because you'd get these emails of who's the best every week, and you just wanted to be that person.
Mm-hmm. What's your why? That makes you, you know, this is a hard industry, but like what makes you want to get up and go to work every day, like in this, you know, challenging competitive industry? I mean, I know, you know, part of it, you said you enjoy the competition, but what else is your one?
Mm-hmm. My family is probably the biggest piece for me. I'm not a stay-at-home parent type. That's just not my forte. I love to work, and I like to find new ways to figure stuff out. And so having very successful parents myself, they kind of ingrained this in my upbringing. And so that challenge of my older brother just constantly trying to, you know, be the best that we can be. And then showing that to my kids, showing my kids what hard work and dedication can get you if you choose to go that route. I mean, if they want to be a mailman and be the best mailman there ever was, do that if that makes you happy. So for me, it was recruiting. And then it was, how much more can I learn? How much can I do in this space? And letting them see that the hard work eventually paid off and we're afforded the things we have in life because of that.
This is something in the pre-call we talked about a little bit that I want to hear a little bit more about. One of the things I asked you is what questions do directors of recruiting ask each other? I can't remember the exact way you phrased it, but it was like, how do you stay sane or alive or whatever? It can be hard with the pressures, in a down market, when, you're having to cut budget and potentially cut teams. And then, when the market's really, really competitive and you're wanting to grow your fleet, that can be, equally hard. There's never a status quo, it's just smooth sailing now forever. We've got it. We figured it out. So how do you personally, Sarah Kate, stay sane?
I will say the relationships I've built, whether it was coworkers that recruited alongside me, whether it was previous leadership, the friends I've made in the industry, because when you try to talk trucking to someone not in trucking, and I think you probably have an understanding of this, Aaron, they don't get it. It's very different. And coming from someone in medical, I said something similar in the medical field, but people did understand to a T, in a sense. Whereas transportation, it's very different. It's very unique. And so having those friends that you can call and reach out to, whether it's you had a bad day or you need help with things, and the people that I've met throughout the years and built very close relationships with, I can text them, I can call them, I can, reach out to them. We kind of follow each other's lives and each other's success stories in some cases, and taking an idea and bouncing it off of them, and taking a problem and bouncing it off of them, getting someone else's perspective. That has been probably one of the biggest things to keep me sane. And the other one is not taking it personal. You mentioned, downsizing. I've been very fortunate to work for carriers that I never had to lay anyone off. I never had to, make a decision like that. Letting people go. I think I cried my first time, not during that process, but it was after the fact, and just not taking it personal and realizing it was a business decision, and relaying that to my team as well is, hey, we have a job to do, and at the end of the day, if we've done everything that we can, it's let go and let God at that point. So that's probably my biggest ways to keep me sane is the relationships that I've built, and keeping those close to where not only can I reach out to them, but it's a two-way street. They can reach out to me, and it's not always take. It's a give, it's a take, it's a balancing act. And we're all in it together. So that keeps me sane most days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's one thing I feel like you've done really well in the industry is just networking and building those strong relationships, and, the focus on helping those people. It's not just always calling to ask for something, but you should do a really good job encouraging your team and then just encouraging peers in the industry. How, for somebody feeling stuck, let's say they've only been in the industry a year or two, new to director of recruiting, we've had a couple on the show recently that, they were in HR or some role, and then they just came into transportation. How do you get connected with other peers, and can you trust, people at other companies and similar roles? What's kind of your philosophy and methodology on that?
Two things on that one. One, getting connected with people, you've got to be willing to reach out. You got to be willing to, the conferences, I think the folks that put those conferences on, they want to introduce you to your peers, and you have to be willing to reach out to them. But the second question that you asked, and this is just going to be me being real, not making friends here. People can lie. People can be mean. People can be hurtful. That gut intuition, It usually doesn't lie. And you are going to find someone who you're not their cup of tea, and they may not be your cup of tea. At the end of the day, you have to choose whether you are going to continue to extend that kindness to them, or you just cut them out of your lives completely. But not really guard your heart in transportation, but guard yourself, because at the end of the day, you don't want to lose your credibility because you're someone who always goes after someone else, right? Like you want to be that person that people can come to, no matter if they don't return that favor, if that makes sense. So it's definitely one of those. Networking it's hard if you're not a people person. At some of the conferences, we've met people who they're very quiet, very shy, and it took sending them a text or giving them a phone call, just an impromptu one, for them to say, "Oh, like I can actually text you." Absolutely, like text away. Because I was the same way. I used to be terrified to reach out to our safety managers, and I sent one a message, I think on LinkedIn the other day, and just told him, I was like, "You are a legend. You are a legend that I was terrified to go to." And so now seeing like where he's in, like, I think close to retirement age, and I used to be terrified to reach out to him. And then here I go, send him a message on LinkedIn to thank him for all he did years ago. So just willing to be authentic and be personable with folks, it goes a long way, especially in this industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there was a season in my life where I tried to like shape shift and like be a different person in different little groups. Because I've always been friends, with all different people across different groups. But sometimes I think I lost myself in it, almost did too much of it in terms of like, I just got to be me and be authentic. And that's one thing, I've known since we met each other, several years ago, is just you're authentic and you shoot straight. And I just love that. Like just the direct, I think we need the directness in our industry, just because I mean, we're dealing with, a lot of dollars, a lot of people's livelihoods, we have to get a lot of things done really quickly. But then just, being authentic. And I kind of learned, like, as I'm in the industry, like there's like a little, like we can all get along and support each other. But then, everybody kind of has their people that they relate most to, and that's okay. Yeah. So it's just been cool to see you, thrive at several different companies. And then I think, the sky's the limit where you are now at DB Schenker. So now let's take a minute to thank today's sponsor. Do you hire truck drivers in hard to fill areas, or do you need help creating efficiency in your recruiting department? You're not alone. With 50 plus years experience, Trucking Clicks specializes in data-driven strategies, industry-leading customer experience, and custom solutions that'll get you to your goal. Trucking Clicks is your go-to place for high-quality, direct leads at scale. Visit truckingclicks.com or call 512-982-0816 today. We talked a little bit about this on like how do you survive in the industry question, but how do you maintain a work-life balance? Let's say even just in this season, like the last 6 months that have been a little more challenging, getting into a new role.
Well, one, having a conversation with your family, your support system at home before you take on a role like this, making sure everyone understands the changes that are going to have to happen on the home front. Our oldest daughter, she's been great at kind of stepping in and getting them to where they do their chores before we get home. But that part, it has been a struggle, simply because more hours go in before and after work sometimes. And so if it's getting up earlier in the morning and then logging in later in the evening, that has been a shift. But again, we had the conversation prior to me taking the role of this is going to be a challenge. And then two, the support system. A lot of people don't want to ask for help. They don't want to ask, their parents to watch the kids or anything like that when you travel or you go out of town. And I have a very good support system. And so for me, I think of it as my parents love their grandbabies. So me asking them like, hey, do you want to, they love it. They're like, I wish you would ask me more. And I'm like, you can have them when you want them. Just come get them, And so having that ability to say, hey, I need some help picking them up, or I need some help doing this, that, whatever the case may be. And then also getting to take your spouse on trips with you if you're driving somewhere and they can go off and, mountain bike or whatever while you're working in the office. That has helped a bit too, because one of the trips we were able to do that and the kids stayed home, and that helped a ton with that work-life balance too.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I can relate to the asking parents to do things. Like I always feel like I'm inconveniencing, but my parents have given the same feedback. They're like, we want you to ask more. It's just funny how we work. So one of the things we talk about is marketing trends. And so what we're seeing like in driver recruitment and marketing, what's working in marketing right now?
It's funny you ask. We had a conversation earlier today. So it's changing, ever changing. I think that should be the theme of transportation as a whole, but especially with marketing trends, because you see, speed to contact is one of the most important things in getting the driver's interest level up. And so AI has been a big player in a lot of on the vendor side of how quickly we can get that person contacted. And so that's been a tool of, I think the marketing piece is one, how quickly you can get that marketing out there. But two, how you're doing it. Years ago, if I would have mentioned that we were hiring drivers via Facebook, I think I would have been laughed out of the industry because there was, no way, no how. And then as the years, progress, it's, we're converting leads from Facebook directly into our ATSs. But I don't think there's one key way to do it, because we're marketing to multi-generations. So if you're 60 plus and you don't have a social media, how are you hearing about these companies? And then if you're marketing to the 20 to 30 and social media is your life, you're not looking at these job boards. You don't even know what these job boards are. So one, how quickly? Two, where are you reaching out to? And three, is your content organic? Is it what people want to see? You just take a sign that says Merry Christmas and slap your logo on it? Or do you take a picture of your driver standing around a Christmas tree with their families? Or one of the things we did at a previous carrier, a driver decorated their truck for Christmas and had a wreath on it. And we're putting that driver in front of that truck. That's the things that people would want to see. They want to know that they're coming somewhere where it's not just like slap your logo on it and go. We care about the family piece. We care about the driver piece. And so I think taking, a combination of all those things and what you put out there is what you get back. I think that's probably where we see the most success, is just making sure that what we're putting out there represents what we do for our drivers day in and day out.
Mm-hmm. What do you see, like, just as you've experimented with different AI tools or things like that? Like, where do you see AI going?
I am not the biggest fan of AI, and mainly for me, it's because, we always say that truck drivers can see a lie from a mile away, or they can sense when someone's fake. And so it's very hard to create that personable experience via AI. And demographically as well. Do you get your AI tool to where they know it's a Southern driver who may want someone with a Southern personality, or if it's a Northern driver, and no offense to my friends up North, but they want someone who's more fast paced and direct. And so I don't think AI would ever be able to recreate that piece of it. I think there is beauty in AI and automation and things that make the process quicker. Because I think while speed to contact is important, time to hire is also important. And so that automation piece is great for that, but you can't take away that personable interaction, because once the driver is on the hook, as we say, and you get them brought in, they're dealing with people in orientation. They're dealing with their driver managers. They're dealing with safety. And those are all people personable things or parts of the industry that they're going to experience post the recruiting process. And so if they don't feel that being loved, hugged, and held onto at the beginning, in my opinion, I don't think you're going to have as many people that want to come on board, because they're like, and this is just a computer. You sent that same message last month that you sent this month. Where is the, hey, Aaron, how are you? It's just, hey, Aaron, what zip code? Right? Like you see that more often instead of that personable, how are you? How's your mom and them? As you hear so often in the South.
One of the things that I noticed just early on, like partnering with you at another fleet, was that like just your team like adored you, like, and like everybody, I'm not saying everyone, but you just had high buy-in from your team, like in a short period of time, and building that like can be a challenge, and not everyone has that. So my question around that: why is it important to not only be good at what you do, but also to be good at the people part?
I think people don't realize that recruiting is one. It's the melting pot of transportation. We deal with each and every department, whether directly or indirectly, and then we impact each department directly and indirectly. And so, just recruiting in general, you have to be a people person. I mean, there's no other option out there. And I love people. We used to joke about it growing up. You have a people person, but when you have a group of people that are people persons, are they people persons or people? And so it's something that's always stuck in my head is we want to create an environment of people that love interacting, that love collaborating. And we may have the best of the best on our team, but if the team doesn't get along, that dynamic is not going to work. You're going to have people climbing on top of each other to get to that top spot instead of building each other up in that pyramid to where the team sees success. And I think that's been part of how we try to construct teams, and then how we try to maintain teams is making sure that it's a cohesive and a collaborative whole. Because one bad apple spoils the bunch, and you want people to have that buy-in. You want them to see that their opinions are what drives the team forward, because they're the ones doing the jobs. And so that to me is important, is if you have those relationships and you've built those relationships around that, it makes the job a lot less harder, because you're just existing together, working together. And so it's a lot less of a job and more like a family, if you will. And I think you spend so many hours with these folks, it's a lot easier to jump in and help each other when you all work as a family and not as, this person cares about this and this person cares about that. No, we all care about doing this together. So I think that's probably why it's the most important, at least as far as in my eyes.
That's good. So you've had a lot of different roles, like in a short period of time, like a lot of success in different recruiting roles. And how have you had to grow personally and professionally to get where you are today?
Well, as I mentioned before, I was a bit of a firecracker as a recruiter. One of my former bosses, still great friend to this day, would tell you I was his favorite pain in his side, just because I wanted to push the envelope. We've got black and white hiring criteria, but then there's that gray, and I like to live in the gray and push that envelope forward. And so, learning how to communicate that. Without, being someone who's just going to, fly off the handle when they don't get their way, and saying, show this to me, show me why we can't hire this driver, show me why we can't do these things. And then again, that former safety director that I messaged via LinkedIn not too long ago, learning the safety side. With my dad being in law enforcement my whole life, I understood the accident portion a lot better. Coming into recruiting, because I've seen the wrecks, I've seen the damage that 18-wheelers can do when operated incorrectly. And so that was, it was taking that safety mindset and applying it to the recruiting role. So I knew this is something that we can push the envelope on, and then this isn't. So that was an easier challenge, I would think, versus the how to communicate. How to not be so, not really passionate, but stubborn, if you will, because I do like to, when things are black and white, I don't like when we venture off into the gray and the driver's not qualified, right? And then the second is the people part is easy for me, like communicating with people and making friends. That part's easy for me. It's the corrective counselings that's really hard for me. I don't like getting onto people. I don't like to tell people no. I just want it to all be, rainbows and unicorns. So that part was very hard for me. And because I am such a people person, letting someone go just completely destroys your heart, especially when they've done things that you've asked them to do and it still just didn't work. It just wasn't working out. And so that was a big challenge for me, and I think still is to this day, is coaching people in a negative way. You just want a team of rock stars that you never have to say is doing anything wrong. And that's just not realistic. That's never going to be the case. There's always going to be room to grow. And then the last thing I think is being willing to learn all the things, being willing to see the safety side, being willing to see the account management side, being willing to see the dispatching side. And once I had the training in all the different areas, it just clicked. And I was like, this is full circle recruiting. This is full circle transportation. And then taking that and applying it to how I recruited, and then also how I trained my teams, is you have to see the big picture. You have to see how what you tell this driver impacts each and every department. And so that in of itself, I think, was a pivotal moment in my career. Is once that aha moment happened, it was like, okay, I'm learning now. How do we grow? So that was, and if I remember correctly, it was when I was at Martin that officially just clicked in my head, and I was like, okay, I think I'm ready for the future.
Mm-hmm. Did you always want like a leadership role or to be in a director type position? Or how did that?
Absolutely not.
So some people are always gunning for that. So I'm just curious, so how did that kind of play out?
So I got my first leadership role when I was 20. It was a horrible idea for whoever promoted me into that role at a young age. Everyone was older than me. I was the youngest one in that department. And I knew right then and there, like, I will never, ever go into a leadership role again. And then fast forward into the pharmacy field, I had applied for a role just to be like a lead. And then in transportation, I was happy being a recruiter. I loved it. I loved winning. I loved, striving to be at that top spot. And when I was at Martin, my boss at the time, one of the reviews was because I didn't apply for a team lead role. I was like, I haven't been here long enough. I just don't feel like I deserve that role. And he was like, you're already doing it. You're already teaching. You're already trying to help your peers. Like, why wouldn't you? And so I left there and went back to night. And that's where it started. It was, a team lead role over a small group. Then it was over the big group. It was putting processes together. And that's where I learned if you want to help implement change and make the process easier, you can only do so much at ground level where you're doing the job. You have to eventually move up if you want to make the changes that are going to help those people. And that's where it clicked for me there, and just moving into those roles. And I fell in love with helping people and teaching people something that I loved so much. And seeing other recruiters that enjoy the same part of it that I enjoy. That's another part of my why right there. Like, just watching people see success and love what they do. I mean, you can't ask for better. I mean, it's a very fulfilling role.
Yeah. One thing John Maxwell says all the time is like leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And so as you were talking through that, I was just trying to think about how does Sarah Kate have so much influence? And two things stuck out to me. It's the loving, like, and caring for people, like being a people or a people persons. And to that part, the people, and then the job too, like loving trucking. Cause I don't think you can fake either one of those things and have influence. Like, I think they have to be. And so they're just kind of in your DNA. It's like you're created to be in this role, at least for this season and this time. And, and you just keep stepping into it, even though it's uncomfortable. I actually didn't know that. Like, I just assumed it's like Sarah Kate came in and wanted to be like commander of all recruiting universe.
Not at all. And that's the thing is, people say like, oh, do you want to try safety or operations? No, thank you. Actually, at all. Recruiting that's my happy place, right? Like that's where I'd like to stay. I like doing the processing piece where you try to figure out how to make things flow easier. And I think there's enough of that in the recruiting space that will at least keep me busy for the foreseeable future. And then as companies grow, and especially here at Schenker, we're looking to grow and figuring out the how to do that, right? Like how can we be better than we were last year? And I wouldn't say that I wouldn't going back to being a recruiter. We actually sent out a blast today, and we put the leads in my name so that everybody wouldn't be overwhelmed. And I had sent it to one of the leads. I was like, man, I miss being a recruiter, because, you just have all these people messaging about this job. And so I wouldn't say I wouldn't go back, but I think I wouldn't be as fulfilled now that I've seen what being a leader in transportation looks like. It's just, like I said, it's that factor of teaching people and seeing them love what I loved initially too, that I don't think I could replace that.
Mm-hmm. That's good. What should I have asked today that I didn't ask? Is there anything I should have asked so far that I've not asked?
I wouldn't think so. The only question was the initial one of, what keeps you sane. And like I said, relationships, like that's the key. If anyone's asked what the secret sauce is collaboration. It's that is the secret sauce to successful recruiting, is figuring out what you're doing. If it works, keep doing it, change it up. And if it's not working, don't be afraid to reach out and say, look, I'm struggling. help me. And like I said, when you build those relationships that aren't just a one-way street, that are always, take, and a little bit of give, you're going to see that a lot more people are willing to jump on board, even if you're on a different ship. They're jumping on board this lifestyle of making it to where all drivers matter and not just my company matters. It's every driver.
Mm-hmm. Yep. At the end of the day, it's about the drivers that move everything around the world.
Mm-hmm.
I was about to say
Because
around America, but DB
we've
Schenker, we're
seen what
talking
happens when
globally.
it shuts down. Yeah. Yeah. We see what happens when the world shuts down, even for a brief moment. And truckers became as essential as doctors and nurses. And I think a lot of credit was not given. I mean, we gave them some, right? It was, finally got my toilet paper in, thank a trucker. But it was more than that. Like it was your food. They were our lifeline. The ports were backed up. The shelves were empty. And I think they were the unsung hero after the dust settled. We went back to that normalcy, and they just kept doing what they've always been doing. So I think that's a part that, we have to do better as an industry and say, how can we do better to make every driver count? And I mean, that's our slogan here, is, every driver counts, not just some, not just the best, but all of them.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Sarah Kate. I really appreciate you carving this time out to speak to our audience. And I hope you have a great rest of your week.
You too. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us today. Our goal with the Hire Truckers podcast is to provide industry insights, marketing trends, and motivation to level up your recruiting game. If we added value, take a few seconds to share this with your network. Have a great week.